Welcome back to God's Business Playbook, and I'm your host, Kirby Ingles, and today's episode is going to be a game changer for leaders who want to build something that truly lasts. And we're diving deep into the power of integrity and God's wisdom in leadership. So let me start with this question. Are you leading based on your understanding, or are you seeking God's guidance for your decision? Even the best of intentions can fall short without His wisdom steering the ship. And today, I'm going to share how God in Genesis 26 offers us some powerful insights about integrity and God's intervention in leadership, and why you need more than just good intentions to avoid making critical mistakes in business and life. So let's talk about Genesis chapter 20, verse 6. In this passage, we see Abimelech, the king of Gerar, acting with integrity. He took Sarah into his household, believing her to be Abram's sister. His intentions were honest, but here's the kicker. Even Abimelech acted with integrity, and God had to intervene to keep him from making this critical mistake. God says, yes, I know that in the integrity of your heart, you have done this, and I also kept you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. This shows us something vital. Integrity alone isn't enough. Abimelech's intentions were pure, but he didn't have the full picture. And God had to step in to protect him from sinning unknowingly. What's the leadership lesson here? Well, as leaders, we often believe that if our hearts are in the right place, everything will work out. But the truth is, we need God's wisdom to guide us, to steer us away from pitfalls that we may not be able to see. And in business and life, and we need to humble ourselves enough to recognize that our perspective is limited. God sees the big picture. He knows what we can't, and that's why we need to seek His wisdom in every decision that we make. So how do we apply this to our daily leadership? Well, the answer is really simple, but profound. Seek God's wisdom before making any major decisions. Even in my own personal leadership journey, I found that when I take time to pray and ask God's guidance, I make better decisions. And when I try to rush through or rely on my own understanding, I often overlook critical details. But when I take a moment to pause, ask for wisdom, and listen, well, God's guidance is always there. Here's an example. A few years ago, I faced a major decision in my business and life, and everything looked right on paper, in my heart, in my mind, and the numbers were solid. The opportunity was there. It seemed great and extraordinary. It would have been a life changer, game changer for my family. But something wasn't right, and I didn't learn what that was until 2 or 3 years later. And so instead of jumping in, I should have paused and prayed about it more often. Not that I didn't do that, but I didn't seek solids. I didn't seek solitude. I didn't seek guidance. I went with the moment and emotion. And God's answer came in really subtle ways later on. And He made it very clear that while this wasn't the right path, he allowed me to walk in that direction for a time. And later on, I found out that this opportunity led to a lot of serious issues down the road. And so, while I felt like I was called to this decision, I allowed other things to rise above what God was really trying to communicate to me. And I saw that later on. And that's the power of God's wisdom. He sees what we can't, and when we invite him, right, into our leadership, he protects us. So here's the takeaway. I want you to start developing the habit of seeking God's guidance daily. Before you make decisions, I want you to ask for his wisdom. It's a really simple action, but it can prevent some really costly mistakes like I did. Learn from my example. And it will lead you to far greater success than you would achieve if you were doing it on your own. Now, let's shift gears here a little bit and let's talk about investing in leadership and do it with a long-term perspective. Often we're tempted to look for some really quick wins. And in business, we want results right now. But God operates on a different timeline. And I quite honestly found that out firsthand perspective. And in Genesis 20, God was working behind the scenes to protect Abimelech for a very long haul. And he did that for me in this situation too. Similarly, when we align our leadership with God's wisdom, we have to trust the process and think long term. And one of the best investments that you can make as a leader is in the people that are around you. You see, I wasn't investing. I was a lone wolf. I could do everything on my own, and that's where I fell short. Are you pouring into your team, building up your future leaders, and planting seeds where it will bear fruit years down the road? Yeah, quick gains may look appealing. I saw that. But long-term investing in people, in systems, in relationships creates a much more sustainable success. So let me tell you this. God's patience and faithfulness is a reward. And when you choose to invest in other people, even when we can't seem or see the immediate returns, you're building a legacy that will stand the test of time. And, well, that's how you lead with a long-term vision. And lastly, I want to touch on some generosity. No, we've talked about this before, but I cannot express how important generosity is in leadership. It's more than just financial giving. It's more about less about the material things than it is about what you're willing to share, your time, your knowledge, and the opportunities with others that you give others. And when you give freely, when you share what you have, you multiply your impact. And in Genesis 20, God's intervention saved Abimelech from disaster. And in return, Abimelech showed generosity by returning Sarah to Abraham and giving gifts. This wasn't just a transactional exchange, something that I've experienced quite a lot. It was a show of grace and even leadership. In your business or leadership role, generosity can look like mentoring someone who shows potential, helping a colleague through a tough situation, or even creating opportunities for others to grow. And when you lead with generosity, you're sowing the seeds that will multiply far beyond what we can imagine. Generosity creates a culture of abundance, and it aligns with your leadership and with God's economy. Give back in ways that create lasting growth. And as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this final thought. Integrity is foundational to leadership. But without it, God's wisdom, it can only take you so far. And when you lead with integrity and you actively seek God's guidance in setting up yourself for these long-term successes and influencing in others' lives, well, there are three key things that I want you to do in order to be able to do this. And that is to start seeking God's wisdom before making any decisions. And don't rush through it. Take time to pray and listen. And that means shut up and listen. Silence, solitude, and prayer. And prayer doesn't always mean you talking to God. Prayer sometimes means being quiet and listen. Invest with a long-term perspective. Don't just chase the quick wins. Think about the future and how your actions today are building a lasting legacy. Practice that generosity in your leadership. Empower others, give back, and create opportunities for those around you. And if you take these principles and apply them to your leadership, I can guarantee you that you'll see transformation not only in your business, but also in the lives of those you lead. I encourage you to take a few moments today to reflect on where you need God's guidance in your leadership. How can you align your leadership with His wisdom and integrity? Let me know your thoughts by leaving a comment or reaching out to me on social media. If you found value in today's episode, well, subscribe to God's Business Playbook, this podcast, for more insights on how to guide your leadership journey and follow faith-driven principles. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. That's huge in generosity. It's actually taking a book out of generosity, taking the time to share something with others that you have learned. Let's continue to grow together. Thank you for joining me on God's Business Playbook. Keep leading with integrity, seek God's wisdom, and watch how He transforms your leadership. And until next time, stay blessed. My name is Kirby Ingles, and I'll see you next time.